Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the In My Beach Boys Room podcast. I am Adam Schreiner, the casual Beach Boys fan, learning all about the Beach Boys music, history, everything Beach Boys. My teacher here is Matthew Hartz. He's the expert teaching me all about the Beach Boys. And we are on episode 10.
I've been thinking about that word expert, and I don't know.
What should be the word? Enthusiast?
Yeah.
Nut. I know you like the nut. I know you like the nut.
But yeah, there's almost.
But you are an expert. I mean, you literally.
There's a little bit of that expert thing in there, but I've been
even Al
anyway.
Jardine in the Al Jardine episode, he confirmed, checking in with you on dates that you might, might be the expert here. So we are talking about friends and meditation, and I actually get to at the end of this episode, I'm going to switch spots and get in the hot seat where Matthew is going to talk to me and ask the questions about meditation because I have a decent background in meditation. So we'll get to all that. Our usual social media drops. We have an Instagram, which is Matthew Hartz Music. We also have YouTube, also Matthew Hartz Music, where you can check out Beach Boys covers. You can look at the videos from the podcast. And in fact, if you look at the last, it would have been, 4, counting this episode, the last 4 episodes, we have moved throughout the 60s room.
The late 60s room.
Yeah, so this is In My Beach Boys Room podcast, but this is actually, Matthew has a sort of like Beach Boys Museum, which is multiple rooms, and this is the 60s room. We started out with the Pet Sounds
corner, then the Smile corner.
Then we went to the Smile corner. Last episode was the Smiley Smile Wild Honey corner.
Yeah. This wall behind me, I call it the Holy Trilogy wall. It's the Smiley Smile Wild Honey Friends section, which is so special to me.
Right, and we just shifted over. So just like we kind of did on the other wall, we just shifted over a few feet, and we are in the Friends area now.
Yes, and we're and one of the next episodes is going to have us over in the corner where the late 60s stuff is, Stack of Tracks in 2020.
There we go. Okay. So, yeah, you can check all that out on YouTube. And then Twitter, we're on Twitter. That's Matthew_Hartz. So let's just get into what we're going to talk about today, and that's the Friends album and meditation. So why don't you take it from here and talk to me about the correlation between the meditation and the Friends album itself, and everything there is to talk about here.
Yeah, well, we talked about the Beach Boys meeting the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in December.
At the end of last episode.
Yes. And so the Beach Boys, what happened is actually after that concert, Mike flew to London for some reason, and Dennis called him and said, "You got to come back to Paris. The Maharishi is going to teach us to meditate." And Mike said, "You sure?" So he did fly right back to Paris. And I'm not sure if they were initiated into TM and if it was just Dennis and Mike or how much of the group, but at least some of them were taught meditation right then. And then shortly after the beginning of the year in 1968, all of the rest of the Beach Boys and their spouses who hadn't gone on that Paris trip went to New York City, including Brian, along with his wife, and they met the Maharishi there. I think it was New York City, and he initiated all of them into transcendental meditation, gave them their mantras, but all of them and their spouses, and they were all learning to practice. Mike and Al went on to become teachers. And so anyway, that's going on. The meditation is coming in pretty fast, pretty quickly,
right,
with all of them. So Mike decides to, at the Maharishi's invitation, to go to India for 2 weeks, starting in the very end of February through mid-March. And he goes and studies alongside the Beatles. All 4 of the Beatles were there.
At the same time?
Yes, exactly the same. They roomed with each other. It was a pretty intimate setting with a fairly small group of people, but there were other famous people. Mia Farrow was there and her sister and another musician named Donovan. But anyway, Mike was there and studied. It, of course, had a huge impact on him. The other Beach Boys declined going on that trip. Mm-hmm. But anyway, he went, and in his absence, they started sessions for the Friends album and started working on it. Mainly in Brian's home studio, but Compared to Smiley Smile and Wild Honey, they were going out to a few outside studios for some of the stuff, just because Brian's home studio was limiting in some aspects, and if they needed to do a bigger group of musicians or a string, some stuff like that, they'd have to go someplace other than Brian. So a little bit more than Smiley Smile and Wild Honey.
Right.
There's more session musicians on Friends. Some of the old Wrecking Crew guys, but some new guys. A guitar player named David Cohen and Jim Gordon, famous drummer, is doing a lot of work on Friends. But so more session musicians again than Smiley Smile and Wild Honey.
Right.
And also Brian kind of shifted slightly his musical writing style again. Yeah, just slightly into definitely a jazzier sense of the writing itself and the chord progressions and the melodies, but then also the feel of everything. And I wonder how much of that is influenced by the musicians he's got around him right now in the studio. But it's definitely a different feel. And I think of those three albums, Smiley Smile, Wild Honey, and Friends, they're made so close to each other in time, but definite shifts in just a few months to Wild Honey, and then after that, this definite other shift to this thing with Friends. But it's still the same writing. It's still the wondrous Brian Wilson music, but it's just yet again presented in a different context. Really different, the Friends album. There's a lot of writers on Friends. I went through and counted them. Al has 5 co-writing credits.
Wow.
Dennis has 5 co-writing credits. Carl has only 3 here. Brian 9. But Mike has 4. There's 2 tunes that have 5 to 6 writers on them. And then the Be Here in the Morning, actually, it might be the only tune in the entire catalog that is listed as all 5 of the Beach Boys as writer on it.
In the entire catalog?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I often think of the Friends album meaning actual friends and collaborating and all the sharing of the writing responsibilities, and maybe Brian's trying to get everybody in the spirit of sharing what he's had to shoulder for so long,
Right.
But that's definitely a marker on this album. You don't ever see that again with all these there's a lot of songs with a lot of writers on it. So they were working on these things all together, which is really cool to think about. So we'll get into the Friends tunes.
Okay, the album itself.
Yeah, so it starts with Meant for You, which is that fragment I play at the beginning of this episode, so in a couple years ago, they released, just like they did for 1967 for the Sunshine Tomorrow thing, where they released the Wild Honey and Smiley Smile sessions. They did one for 68/69 that's Friends in 2020. It's called Wake the World. And there's there's a lot longer version of Meant for You. Meant for You on the Friends album is just it's very, very, very short. It's like a prayer to open the album. It's inspired by meditation, and it's basically the first lyrics are about sitting down to meditate.
Oh, okay.
Setting the tone for that. It's a Mike tune. I wonder if it was inspired by him being an indie. I'm sure everything was. The whole album was inspired by their initiation into transcendental meditation.
Right.
But here, obvious. But check out that version of Meant for You on the Wake the World sessions. It's a whole song that they just decided to use a small snippet of.
Okay.
Then after that, we have the actual song Friends. I think it's written, the credits are all 3 Wilson brothers and Al. I first heard the entire Friends album on the Twofer series, which was after Pet Sounds was re-released in 92, then Capitol did the whole catalog, and they did 2 CDs on each release. So they called it Twofer. So every release had 2 of the original albums on it.
You said CDs?
Yeah, this was...
CDs were happening here?
this is CDs in the early 90s. I'm talking about the twofer.
I see. Okay, I'm sorry.
And so this Friends was one of those albums that I didn't hear till I was in college.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so,
all right. Now my timeline makes a little more sense. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm talking about those twofers, and in those liners it says that this song Friends was used at the Berklee School of Music in Boston to teach people how to write in 3/4 time. This is a waltz, and I thought, wow, that's pretty wild. I never thought about that. Also, the twofer series is really cool because they talked Brian at that time, and that was a strange time for him, the late 80s when they were getting all this together, for him to write notes about each one of the reissues, and they're pretty interesting. They're pretty short, but pretty dry and direct, and he gives some really interesting information on the Friends liner, where he also gives an explanation of chord and harmony theory, kind of music theory stuff, which people don't think Brian has a lot of knowledge of it, but yet there it was laid out in those liner notes, him talking about chords and how they were built and everything. And that, to me, I was thinking last night when I was going over my notes, I need to find those liner notes. Those are only there, and they're packed away someplace. Yeah. So anyway, that's the Friends tune. After that is a Brian and Al tune. I don't know if this is the only time that it solely has Brian working with Al, but it's at least one of them. I've always loved this tune, and it was on the Live in London album that I had pretty early. So this was the one song off Friends that I knew before college. This is the only song, and it's really cool. It's about, day becoming night and then night becoming day again, and the way that the key, the modulations and the music all just represents that shift. It's so cool, even live. It's a really great song. Love that. After that is Be Here in the Morning, and I already referenced this as being might be the only tune that all 5 of the Beach Boys get co-writing credit on. It's another waltz. Brian's writing waltzes now. Where that came from, I had no idea, but it was unusual in pop music, and he starts with this album and just keeps on rolling with it for a few years. Yeah. There's also some really cool jazzy things going on here, things that we call alien blocks of time, meaning that there's little things in the structure that don't, that don't make for perfect structure, but make sense. And I think I mentioned in the Al episode that one of the falsettos here that nobody knew who it was for a long time is old Al Jardine.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think I remember you referencing that.
Yeah. So there's some other great tunes on this album. I think the side one ends with When a Man Needs a Woman, and a beautiful song called Passing By that ends up kind of just being an instrumental that they do some humming on. But it's all just wonderful music. Side 2 opens with Annalie the Healer, which is it was probably, I know there's lyrics about it that talk about Rishikesh, so it's a Mike tune, and I think it kind of came from his experience there, but it's a real cool little tune. And next we have the first significant Dennis Wilson tunes in the Beach Boy catalog. He wrote 2 tunes with a guy named Stephen, I think you say is like Kalinick?
Kalinick?
Yes, and he has the distinction of, I think, being the only guy to write with all 3 Wilson brothers.
Oh,
not at this period. He started with Dennis, and then
so Dennis was the first. This is the beginning.
Yeah. So that's kind of a neat thing about him. But he's a beautiful human being and still a big positive force out there advocating in Beach Boys world. So I shout out to him. But the tunes that he wrote with Dennis were Little Bird and Be Still, which are both really cool tunes. That what I think is really interesting is Brian doesn't get any writing credit on it, but I can tell from the session stuff that he was helping Dennis a lot. He helped on Little Bird and even some of the writing, and wasn't credited maybe, with a couple of little
this
hooks.
Is on the session stuff you see.
Yes,
you see this
and then I didn't know that the only thing that accompanies Dennis's voice on Be Still is an organ, and I didn't know that was Brian. And it's really cool to listen to the session tapes where they're going through the tape, and Dennis is saying, "Hey, I think it's a little fast, Brian." And listen to them work together, just the two brothers.
Sure,
it's pretty cool. After that is one of my favorite Friends tunes, and really inspired me years ago to start writing in bossa nova styles. It's Brian's bossa nova. It's called "Busy Doing Nothing," and the lyrics are really cool. And reportedly, if you knew where you were starting, he was giving you the directions to his house to come up. To come up to his new house in Bellagio, and where he was busy doing nothing.
Right, okay, makes sense.
And it's a great little tune that is, a lot of people love that tune, and they know it from Friends. It's one of the more famous tunes from Friends, I think, or more known.
Right.
After that comes another one of Brian's instrumentals. This one is called Diamond Head, and I heard it was more of a spontaneous jam and collaboration with Brian and a few of the old Wrecking Crew guys, and it is really neat. It's a soundscape sort of deal, but kind of reminiscent of Smile, kind of reminiscent of Let's Go Away for a While, but its own new thing, a new way for Brian to do an instrumental.
Right.
And finally, the last tune is called Transcendental Meditation.
Oh.
Inspired by that again. The lyrics definitely reflect that. But the music, ironically, on this is one of the most dissonant things Brian has ever recorded, and I think it was intentional for a purpose, and not for a negative purpose either. I have looked at this. There's also sessions on that Wake the World thing from '68. They have a different track for this that's just gorgeous, but I think it was intentional, but it has to go on record, maybe outside of the Fire music, aside from the Fire music. It's just one of the most dissonant things. I'll have to play that one for you too. It's for something that is trying to promote resonance and boom. It's almost like we're kind of getting back into that duality thing, right? Where we talk about, when good things and bad things are always going on in life, right? Couple other things. The Friends album gets released, and it is commercially a disaster. I think it got to 126.
That's the best it did.
Oh, it's Brian often says it's his favorite album that he ever did. I even ahead of Pet Sounds. He doesn't have to get into a head game when he listens to it. It's nice and short. Loves the ideas, but he still reaches for it really often. But it was a disaster. And the Beach Boys were entering a period where they were unpopular. I mean, they in the late 60s, they got to where they couldn't draw 200 people in New York.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Until things turned, it was a pretty dark period for them, and they didn't know if stuff was going to go on. A couple other things to talk about after or besides Friends album going on in '68 is, so they hatched a plan for a tour with the Maharishi that was supposed to start in the beginning of April, I think.
With the Maharishi?
Yes. And
what does that look like?
He lectured for a while, and then the Beach Boys would come out and play. And they were doing it in smaller venues like college places and stuff, trying to promote the meditation, way ahead of the game, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so I'm not sure, but I don't think even the first dates got off the ground because Martin Luther King got shot. And they were supposed to start in Nashville, and he got shot in Memphis, just down the road, So I think what was supposed to go on initially got canceled and rescheduled. But when it got rescheduled, it was such a disaster. I mean, people just booed the Maharishi and were wanting the Beach Boys. I think only a few dates happened, and it had to be canceled. In between the two events, they lost so much money on those two tour things. Just, and that really wasn't a fault of theirs, and Mike, in his book, he takes credit. He said that was my idea and it didn't work out. I got to shoulder the responsibility for that.
Oh, wow.
And, so that happened. I think that was really significant. But let's talk about Brian just a little bit before we get into your meditation stuff. When he was initiated into the meditation in early 68, he was really affected by it. And there's an interview on the internet. Just look up Brian Wilson Meditation 1968. The interviewer's name is Jamal something. Just look that up. You listen to that, and that young man, let's see, he 24, 20, somewhere around there, he had obviously thought a lot about it already, and this is probably when the Friends album is all going down, but it's a really great interview to listen to. I hadn't heard it till about a year ago, and it was really enlightening. He also wrote a letter to his parents about this time, saying to them, I think I found something really, truly spiritual, and it's way better than the drugs. He had already been into drugs enough to have a problem with it, and so he was making some big statements about it. His story of meditation after this is a little inconsistent, but he was really serious about it then,
at this point.
Also significantly in 68 for Brian, and this was not reported for years. I think this was the first year that he was actually hospitalized for mental illness. Oh. And it wasn't reported for a long time.
Sure.
And so, we have some good and bad things going on. And one other thing I have to mention briefly about this, because it really is an example of the duality of life. The Beach Boys have something beautiful like transcendental meditation come into their life and bring some calm and peace. And while they were making the Friends album, unfortunately, this is when Dennis runs into Charles Manson, Well,
and what do you mean by runs into?
Well, he met
him and they became friends?
Yeah, and then actually before all the bad stuff happened, Charles Manson moved in with Dennis. And yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next episode because it's more pertinent to late 68 and 69. But I just wanted to say
this is when they met.
Yes, when the meditation was going on, the beautiful Friends out. The music on Friends is so serene and beautiful, juxtaposed with the horrifying nature of that whole deal, No, I'm curious to hear about that story.
I mean, it's an unfortunate story, but I am kind of curious, so we'll get into that next time. I do want to ask you, so now that we've covered this trilogy that you call, how can you rank these for your personal taste or is that even
every day it's a different one.
Every day it's a different one.
I recently, especially after starting working with you, I listen to Friends a lot. This is it sets the tone of my day. Listening to Meant for You just gives me goosebumps, before I sit down to meditate, and just to get in that spirit. But I love so many things from Smiley Smile and Wild Honey. I think part of it that resonates so much with me is it's when Brian decided to just sigh and just kind of kick back and still make brilliant music, but make it in a really relaxed way and some really fun ways that, like I was reading last night and reminded of, that commercially these things were not accepted well in their time.
Sure.
They were looked at as major steps backward.
Yeah, from commercially what everybody was loving.
And now, but it's just, I can feel that in Brian. During this, I can feel him relaxing a little bit and just going, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to switch seats. I'm going to put myself, I get the rockin' sock now.
Yeah.
I get to sit in the in the throne, and I'll tell a little bit about my meditation. So give us a second. We're going to do a little switch here. Check.
Well, and I wanted to, I know I'm not on camera anymore.
You're not on camera. I get to be the one. This is nice over here. This is comfy. Yeah, I need to upgrade my seat.
We'll see what we can get done about that.
Maybe exactly. Can I talk to the manager around here, please?
There'll be a new Patreon drive.
Yeah, exactly. Get Adam a new chair.
Sock.
Yeah. Okay, so let's Where do you want to start here?
Well,
how I got into it, or
yeah, I feel really fortunate to have, we've known each other for a long time, but the whole us coming together to do this project has been really a great experience for me. And I've always known a lot of the work that you've done. And when I first started getting into meditation a few years ago, I started asking you about some of the things that you were doing, and you were doing some like that meditation mix-up.
Yeah, I had the meditation business,
and I wasn't. So I was trying to get into it then, but things didn't quite line up for me to quite connect with you, and then that time went by, and then we started working together, and now it's like it's become full circle, and I feel like I've never worked with somebody whose energy was as much in alignment with me on a project like this, and I believe very much it's because we both practice.
Yeah, practice every day.
So,
yeah.
But
so
I want you to tell a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
And
So
let them know what I know about you from
first.
This stuff. Yeah.
So then I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was about 10 years old, and I just dealt with it up until no cure, so just dealt with it up until I was about 20. And then the thing was, when I got diagnosed when I was 10 years old, the doctor told me, hey, just take care of yourself. By the time you're 18, there'll be a cure, and so just take care of yourself in the meantime. So obviously I turned 18, no cure, 19, no cure, 20, still no cure. So at this point I started to get really depressed, really lost the love for life. And then there was one of those weird moments where I turned down the aisle of this store, and on the ground is actually this movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? And this was an independent movie about quantum physics and the power of your thoughts and that sort of thing. And I had seen it when I was about 16. I went to the Flicks, an independent movie theater here in Boise, and I watched it there, and I thought it was super cool. Hadn't really thought about it since. So then when I saw it sitting on the floor of the store, I was like, oh wow, I remember this movie. It was like the Quantum Edition, had all the extra features and everything. So anyway, I buy the DVD, and essentially that sends me down this rabbit hole. I find this meditation. Went to this meditation retreat, and had an amazing experience there, and that really set the tone for the rest of my life up until now, and meditating every day. And I just was telling you, it's kind of funny that this is lining up, as I'm going to go to Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is, in my opinion, one of the best out there for meditation. So if you're looking to get into meditation, what he's doing is he's demystifying the mystical part of meditation, because he's applying science to it. And science is that kind of that bridge between the mystical, and the non-mystical, or, that sort of train of thought. And so the way he's doing it, and how he's using science and putting, EEGs on people's heads and monitoring them, and has a ton of data from his students. I'm really excited to go and have the opportunity to go out there and really disconnect for a full week. So
yeah, we've talked about it, and I can't wait for you to get back, because I want to hear about it.
Yeah,
and I'm a fan of his too.
Yeah, and the one thing that I want to mention is a teacher is key, in my opinion, for when you start to learn meditation. And that doesn't mean that you have to go see a teacher, but there's so much out there now with Joe Dispenza, or you can just go look up any guided meditation. And then even this book
Yogananda.
Yeah, like that, just anything that can get you in there and that you can reference back to. I mean, I still have to hear things over and over again, and to really let it set in, and to remind you about the practice and stuff like that. So it's really whatever resonates with you, whoever resonates with you. To me, it's all the same message, just a different messenger,
Mm-hmm.
And so
absolutely,
I think that, even TM, Joe Dispenza doesn't do anything with TM, and TM has, it's a mantra type of meditation. But if TM doesn't work for you, don't do TM, don't do
Mm-hmm.
TM, do what works for you. If you don't want to sit for an hour, sit for 10 minutes, give yourself, I say minimum 15 minutes, but some days are better than others. Some days I'll sit for 15 minutes. It'll feel like I sat there for an hour. Other times I'll sit there for an hour and it feels like 15 minutes, So you got to take it day by day. And I think we all have heard all the benefits that are out there in meditation, so I don't think I need to list any off.
Oh man.
I think the big thing to mention in regards to the benefits is I don't consider meditation a cure all. I just think it really helps you cope with things. It really raises your emotional intelligence so that you can navigate, your feelings and how you feel in the moment. And I think that's the biggest benefit, the biggest, I guess, unspoken benefit of it, is that it gives you this way to kind of navigate your emotions really and see where you feel. And it's not to say that you need to be happy all the time, but when you are feeling sad or you're feeling angry, to just have the awareness of that and to know that, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I'm not going to be here forever. And then that kind of just helps you process it a little better. So I can go on and on, but I had a meditation studio for about 8 years, and I taught a bunch of people. And I think the biggest thing I want to talk about is some of the misconceptions that I hear all the time, and anybody who probably meditates and promotes meditation probably hears as well. And I'd say the first one is thinking that meditation means that you have to make your mind go blank. A lot of people say, well, I can't make my mind go blank. Like, that's not really the purpose. There's a bunch of different techniques, but essentially they all come down to narrowing your focus or putting your focus on one thing. And so if you're meditating on the breath, all you're thinking about is the breath. Just breathing in, breathing out. All of a sudden you think about an email you got to answer, a phone call you got to make, and you go down this whole tangent, and then you just go, oh, no, okay, I'm on my breath. So you bring it back to the breath. And every time you bring that attention back, that's the practice of meditation. That's literally the part of it until that gap gets shorter and shorter. And then all of a sudden you can just stay with the breath, and then you can get that sort of blissful, euphoric feeling that a lot of people talk about. Second one is thinking is a right or wrong way to meditate. Like I said, there are different techniques, but no one knows what you do, what's going on in your head when you close your eyes. The biggest thing is just to keep that point of focus. And a lot of people think, well, I can't focus. Every time I go 10 seconds and then I'm thinking about something else. It's like, well, if you just self-correct and bring it back to the attention, and you'll go 12 seconds, that's meditation. I literally could just say, hey, if you're, in a place where you can do this and you're listening, just look at your phone. Like, literally just look at your phone right now, not if you're driving or something, and just look at your phone. Stare at your phone. Just let your eyes rest on your phone. Look at the curves, the shape of the phone. Look at the lines. Is the phone dirty? Is it clean? See, that right there is just a simple example of you just hone in that focus. And that's essentially what meditation is. And so the worst thing you can do is think that you're doing it wrong. Just know that you're doing it right, and just do it. Like, that's the thing, is there's been many times where I would get done with the meditation and be like, well, that didn't feel like I did anything. But you're working that muscle. So no right or wrong way. Your mind doesn't have to go blank. And then another one kind of along the same lines is thinking that you have to be good at focusing to meditate. I can't, there's no way I could focus for that long.
Like for people with ADHD.
Exactly, yeah.
Whatever.
That's like putting the cart before the horse, no, the whole point is that you are going to be working with your attention. Like, the human race has ADD. It's, I think it's something like 17 seconds. We change a thought every 17 seconds. Something
and you're
crazy
not going
like
to be good at it for a while.
No.
Or whatever good is,
Yeah, and just be okay with that. Like, okay, this is the point, and I still have to, I sit down with myself every day and I still have to go, okay, so how's it going to be today, mind? Are you the monkey mind, or, what degree of the monkey mind are you, I guess, is really what it comes down to. But that doesn't stop me. And then you start to see the improvement, and you start to see the benefits, which I know you've said, like, the more you do it, the more you like it. The biggest thing is just to get started.
One of the things I like, that I've listened to Sadhguru a little bit.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And I do his guided meditation most days. But what he says is meditation is when people say, hey, I'm having trouble doing this. And he said, it's not something that you can, that you can achieve. It's not really a goal. It just happens to you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about the journey. Mm-hmm. It's not about getting to this point where you can sit there all of a sudden it'll just happen. Like all of a sudden you won't even realize it, and you will be a statue and will not even realize, be like, I don't think I moved that whole time, just statuesque. So, and along the same point of if you like his guided meditations are the best way to get started. In fact, I recommend that you do that because it gives you a point of focus to come back to. You're still going to probably wander, but at least you can be like, okay, back to where am I at on this, on who I'm listening to. So the last misconception that I want to say is that meditation has to be spiritual or religious. It absolutely doesn't. If you don't want to get into that, the health benefits alone are worth it. So don't think that because, you're meditating that you got to throw on some robes, light some incense,
No.
start going on retreats. You don't have to do any of that. Just do it for the fact that it helps you, like with your EQ, and helps you cope with things. It makes you feel good, and before you know it, you won't want to miss. So
yeah, I think I was sharing that I was talking with somebody the other day about it, and they inquired with me, is it Buddhist? Is it Hindu? I said, it's basically kind of a breathing exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't embrace anything, but it embraces everything.
Yeah, there you go. Well put. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's a very personal thing. I've done group meditations. I've done plenty of group meditations, which are super cool. There's actually a study done that when you meditate with other people, and if they can drop their brain waves down, it actually makes it easier for you to drop them down as well. It's a really cool effect that happens. There's tons of cool studies out there, but I think that you want to dig deeper into that. It's out there, but I think that we should probably. The main thing I wanted to cover was the misconceptions, because that was something I used to always run into as a meditation teacher, and also to find a teacher. And then just those unspoken benefits. And
yeah, well, I was hoping that we could encourage people to try meditation, because of all of my friends through the years, and including friends that have had substance abuse problems and some of the same things that I've had problems with over the years, and you know what, it's a recurring thing. Wow, the meditation helps more than anything.
Right.
And it's something that it's when you hear a friend affirming that, you go, oh man, you're right. Yep. That's, and wish you could bring it to more people more quickly, but you just got to keep on being a decent advocate for it, which I guess we're being.
Yeah. And if, you're a Beach Boys fan, they got into it, we're into it. It is worth it. One thing I've told people is you can't make somebody meditate. It's like you can't make somebody go to the gym and exercise, but when you do it, it is so worth it. The payoff is so worth it, even more so than the gym, in my opinion. Yeah. So, but I think that'll wrap it up for today.
Yes.
We'll see you.
Happy 60th anniversary.
Oh yeah, we're still there. We're still there. Yeah. So, okay, well, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.